Hi, it's Dr. Asatar Bear for Meditation 2.0, where inner peace meets modern life. The topic of this video is she or he enlightened? 7 ways to tell. So I just want to start off by acknowledging that we have a very severe gender bias when it comes to thinking about spiritual attainment, especially enlightenment. And that's because due to our history, some enlightened men have been remembered, and very few enlightened women. And it's kind of given us this feeling like, well, have there been a lot of women who were enlightened? And the answer, of course, is yes. It's just that history has done a terrible job at remembering them. And most of the enlightened men have also been forgotten, but we remembered a few, and that's the issue, right? It's patriarchal history. It has nothing to do with spirituality. All right. The truth is that enlightenment, spiritual attainment, illumination, whatever you want to call it, that is your birthright, regardless of gender. And I don't want anyone continuing with the wrong notion that, I don't know, there's some kind of gender imbalance that's aside from our thinking. All this is in our thinking. It's not in reality. So to answer the question, we need to think about, well, what is enlightenment? How do you tell if somebody's attained it? And by the way, how does meditation play a role in this? What does meditation have to do with spiritual attainment? All right, so point number 1, enlightenment means understanding the nature of reality. And so this is what meditation is for. Meditation is to help you understand yourself. Who am I? Right, that's the first thing. To help you understand the nature of reality. What is the nature of being? And thirdly, to help you understand the relationship. What is the relationship between the self, between me, and reality? So I have a joke about this. A guy calls up reality and says, we need to talk about our relationship. And reality says, we have no relationship, and hangs up. It's so cold. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a Cliff Note version of what is the nature of reality. The nature of reality is beingness, right? Reality is being, and that beingness is one. The nature of reality is one. Now, this may not be news to you. You might have heard this before. But the point is to realize the truth of this. It's not something that somebody can tell you, right? It's meaningless if somebody says it. It's like if somebody says, love is all there is. Well, if that's just something that somebody says, then it's a cliche. If it's something that you know in the core of your being, you know this in your bones, then it's an incredibly profound spiritual truth. But that's what spiritual attainment is. It is to realize, to know with utter conviction what the truth is. So when a person speaks, when a person acts, just even when they're quiet, even when they're not saying anything, you get a sense of what is their view of reality. What is their feeling? It's more than a view. A viewpoint is something that you construct analytically. We're talking about your understanding, your conviction, your experience. It's what you know in yourself, right? So an enlightened person has this conviction that life is one. And that comes through everything that they do or don't do, and what they, their actions and the things that they, say and don't say. So, and by the way, I just want to stress that this is pretty unusual. So most of the time, most people are in a state called duality, where we divide the world into categories in order to make sense of it. And a lot of these categories are dualistic, right? Like, I'm here and you're over there, or this is good and this is bad, right? And then those categories are in conflict. That's the way it has to be, right? If there's good and bad, then they must be in conflict. And then the question is, well, which one's stronger? Which one will win? And this is how many religious texts look from this point of view, like there's a war between good and evil. This isn't unity. This is duality. This is dividing the world into fragments. What does the world look like from the perspective of unity, where all is one? Well, it becomes rather more difficult to say this is good and this is bad. It depends quite a bit on your point of view. So, by the way, you can often hear this in what a person says, but that is not enough. Especially in spiritual circles, people learn how to talk the talk, right? The question is do you live it, right? Is that actually how you act? Is that actually what you believe? So it is, let's say it's necessary but not sufficient, to talk, to say the right things about the nature of reality. All right, so how does meditation help with this? Well, the point of meditation is to experience the state of unity. Living from that place is going to take longer, but you can't live from that perspective if you've never achieved that state, if you've never really had that experience. So, point of meditation is to have the experience, to get good at allowing the experience to happen. It's not an experience that you can make happen. You can't make yourself enter the state of unity, but you can open yourself to it. You can get good at opening yourself to it. That's what meditation is for. All right, point number 2. An enlightened person has the ability to concentrate. Now, you might say this is kind of mundane, and well, yeah, it is, except it's really, really important. You need the ability to focus your mind to achieve things in life. So the first phase of spiritual development is to develop the mind, to learn how to focus the mind. Now, when you meditate, your meditation should be helping you with this. Your meditation should be helping you learn how to focus. Now, sadly, there are kinds of meditation or techniques or whatever that are practiced which don't do very much for helping you learn how to focus. They may be about defocusing your mind, and they may be just about drifting along. Now, every technique has its right time and right place. If you're already really good at focusing your mind, then it may be time to learn how to do that. And, this is why having a teacher is so helpful in terms of learning meditation, learning anything. So there's a great saying that comes from the Zen tradition, which is very simple: chop wood, carry water. What that means is whatever mundane task you're doing can become an opportunity for growth if you give it your full and undivided attention. And you may well see that there's a lot of magic going on all around us. It's just that we're blind to it. We don't see it. When you give something your full attention, you realize an opportunity to grow because you develop this incredible power of concentration. Now you know when you're really concentrating because everything else fades away. You're totally focused, totally immersed in the activity, right? Single-pointed concentration, single-pointed focus. Now you probably experience that with different things. It often happens with something that we enjoy. Maybe it's a great conversation, or maybe when making love, or playing music, or doing a sport. There's all of these incredible moments where we've really just everything, all the distractions of life fall away, and there's just this one thing, this one moment, right? So this is what's known as mindfulness. Your mind. It's funny that it's called mindfulness because your mind is actually empty except for that one thing, right? Just that one thing, all that matters. When we're distracted, you could say your mind is full of distractions. This is, well, it's focus. And it's an amazing state. So this is the foundation of spiritual attainment, getting good at concentrating. And so you can see this in an enlightened person. They have very good concentration, very good focus. And you also ought to see that they've been able to do something with that they've been able to achieve something, that they've been able to accomplish something that matters to them. So I hope I've made it clear here that concentration is necessary, again, but not sufficient. Right? There are many people who can concentrate, and very few who are enlightened. So how does meditation help with this? Well, meditation helps you learn how to concentrate. There's a lot of exercises in different meditation techniques that involve focusing the mind so that you learn how to do that and learn how to do it really, really well. All right, point 3. Enlightenment requires that you understand your emotions and you are able to harness your emotional energy. Concentration is a good start, but it's not enough because, we're more than just a mind. Beneath the surface of your conscious awareness is a sea of emotional energy, and our conscious mind is usually only in touch with like this tiny, tiny sliver of that. In order to truly understand yourself, you need to be aware of this incredible sea of emotional energy within you. You need to be able to tap into that, to experience your emotions deeply, and to not get overwhelmed by the power of your emotions, to let them flow. And even more than just understanding your emotions, as amazing as that is, developing the ability to harness your emotional energy. So to take emotions like anger, betrayal, disappointment, sadness, to turn that into fuel for achieving something great. Because emotions are ultimately energy. Our minds like to put emotions in boxes, and so like, I'm sad, right? It's energy, and that energy can be transformed. That's one of the fundamental principles of energy within you. So an enlightened person you're going to see this kind of sensitivity to emotion, that they understand their emotions, that they can harness their emotions, and that they are reluctant to label emotions as good or bad, positive or negative. And this gets back to our first point about the nature of reality being oneness, being unity. So if that's true, wouldn't we want to apply that to ourselves as well and say, there is no part of me that is good or bad. Right? It's all one. All right, so how meditation can help with this? Well, meditation should be about going deeply into your feelings. Now, not all kinds of meditation are about that, but they should be, because that's what's really going to help you understand yourself the most deeply. If you just bliss out and stay on the surface, or just stay with good feelings or whatever, as that may be pleasant, but it isn't going to take you to a point of understanding who you really are. Meditation should also give you practice at allowing fears and anxieties and doubts and all of the feelings that we typically don't want to experience, taking those and letting them come up, and then staying with them and transforming them. All right, point 4. Enlightenment means both listening to and speaking to the universe. So now it's starting to get pretty mind-blowing, right? There's a great Sufi teacher named Sam Lewis who once said, a lot of people have a kind of a pipeline where they can listen to what God says, and that's amazing. But I also have another pipeline where I can speak. Right? Isn't that amazing? So listening to the universe, right? Developing an ability to, first of all, experience the state of unity, and then actually extract a message from that. That's amazing, right? To actually be able to listen so well to, well, what is the universe's desire as it comes through me, or how is the universe seeking to grow right now? Can you imagine that becomes a meaningful question, that you could actually structure your life around that you could actually act accordingly? So you see that how this emerges from the idea that everything is one. It's inescapable. Well, if everything is one, then my thoughts, my feelings, my individuality has a pretty key purpose in all of this. I am needed. So this idea makes us not just passive receptacles, right? We have willpower for a reason. We have an ego for a reason. We have a personality. We have an individuality. That took years to create, and it has a purpose. So if that all has a purpose, then it's like we cannot get by with just being totally passive. We have to act. We have to speak. So how does meditation help with this? Well, we're talking about going beyond the state of unity and bringing the state of unity into your personality, into yourself, into your words and your deeds, even your thoughts, into everything that you are. It becomes pervaded with this sense of unity. So meditation is about cultivating that. It's about, first of all, well, just this incredible experience of that all is one, and then, well, how can I keep that feeling going while I return to my thoughts, my personality? When I'm out there doing stuff, how do I bring that sense of unity with me? And it culminates in this kind of experience of, well, this is me speaking, this is me acting, but it's actually the universe flowing through me. So that sense of I am representing the will of the universe. And that's an amazing, amazing feeling. And when you are with somebody who's in that flow, well, you'll know it. Point 5 is you feel the answer to your question when you're in the presence of an enlightened being. So a lot of what I've talked about so far can be cleverly faked by a person who knows how to say the right thing or appear a certain way, and sadly that has been true for a long time. That people have tried to appear to be something that they're not, that they've tried to fake being a spiritual teacher, and that's too bad. That's a shame. But there's one thing that you absolutely cannot fake, which is your presence, right? The kind of the oldest way to actually tell what has someone achieved spiritually is, well, what do I feel when I'm in this person's presence? When I get still, what do I feel? So enlightenment or illumination creates an incredibly strong feeling of presence, right? Now our minds might rebel at the idea that we can tell anything meaningful about a person just by being with them, being in their atmosphere. But we can, because the reality is we're all one. All right, it's also the case, of course, that the ability to really listen to, well, what are you picking up from another person's atmosphere? Well, this is the voice of spirit talking to us. And a lot of times that voice has gotten very weak. We're not used to listening to it. And so then we go with what we already believe. We go with our preconceived notions, or we go with our prejudices about the way a person looks, and do they look like how we expect a great spiritual blah 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 to look, right? Do they seem to play the part? And that's not real, right? You can't put on a special robe or a special hat and become enlightened. If only it were that easy, right? So you shouldn't be fooled by that stuff either, right? But it's difficult because that's most of the training of our life has been to believe, what we're told by others, and, not really believe our own inner experience. So the ability to tune into another person's presence and feel something, that's an actual skill, right? We look to cultivate that skill through meditation. And this skill is going to be easiest to cultivate when you practice meditating with other people, right? You need to have a sense of, like, this is my energy, and then, okay, here's another energy. What is this like? You walk through life in the overlapping energy fields of many, many different people. I mean, there's the people who are around you right now, There's the people who you care about, wherever they are, your friends, your family. There's the people who have antagonized you or hurt you. That hurt, that pain in the relationship keeps that person in your heart, in your presence, to some extent. The people who have taught you, have shaped you, right? All of these energy fields are impacting upon you, and yet you walk around thinking, these are my thoughts, these are my feelings, they're just mine, nobody else's. It's just not the case. When you're with a fearful person, you feel fear, you feel anxiety, you feel doubt, you feel dread. When you're with a confident person, you feel a sense of strength, a sense of possibility, a sense that things can be done. That's just the way it is. When you're with an enlightened person, you feel the unbelievably powerful kind of gravitational pull of the state of unity. And it's both attractive and terrifying. It's attractive because you know on some level that this is the truth. And it's terrifying because, well, this is the thing about the truth, it tears away all of the lies that you told yourself, the delusions that you carry. My God, if you knew the truth, what in your life would have to change? And that brings with it a certain kind of, fear. So this is what you might get from being with an enlightened person, an illuminated person. You've had that experience. You might feel this kind of mix of both excitement, attraction to the person and what they're saying, and also perhaps a very strongly negative reaction. And so all of this is great stuff to examine in yourself, of course. All right, so how meditation can help? I think I mentioned this already, but it's one of the fundamental skills in meditation is to learn, well, who am I and what's my energy? And then who is another person? What energy do they have? And how can I become sensitive to that, tune into that, just on an energetic level, not through what they say and do, but just through who they are. That's a skill that you work on in meditation. All right, number 6, the ultimate proof of enlightenment is a teacher's ability to bring a student to enlightenment. So now this seems pretty straightforward, right? What spiritual attainment offers is the ability to help somebody else, and not just help them be more like you, right? Help them be more themselves. Anybody can say, oh, hey, do the things that I do, right? Be like me, and then you'll succeed. But what if you're different? I mean, everyone's different, right? Spiritual teaching, real spiritual teaching, should help you be more yourself. You shouldn't be like me, just because I'm me, right? You should be yourself. You have different energies, and that should be celebrated. There's a reason you have those energies. Wonderful. How can you bring it out? How can you be more yourself? That's the challenge. So there are abusive teachers out there, sadly, and they ultimately will destroy their students. The abusive teacher is always tearing down the students. There's always like a leveling kind of thing going on, right? Like, I'm up here and you're down here, right? And because to the abusive teacher, the student exists to serve the teacher. And this is going to be to the detriment of the student. And it's not really going to be to the benefit of the teacher either in the grand scheme of things. Maybe they will use that power to extract money or whatever from the students. But this isn't real, right? This isn't enlightenment. The truth is that the teacher is there to serve the students, not the students to serve the teacher. Okay, so luckily this is rare. Most teachers of any sort are well-meaning. And there are a lot of well-meaning spiritual teachers out there who just simply haven't reached enlightenment yet. Their students will not be able to reach it either, because you can't help somebody down a road that you yourself haven't traveled, right? So your students will make progress, no doubt, but that progress will be limited. The reason for that is that the teacher shapes your understanding of the path itself, and the uses of the tools of meditation, even if you understand certain techniques, you don't really understand how to use them without actually knowing and experiencing really what they do, right? You know, somebody who's only watched other people hammer stuff is not going to be able to teach you really how to use a hammer. You have to have done a lot of hammering in order to know that. And so the same is true about the techniques of meditation. You can't just teach somebody them just because you've learned them. You have to have known them to work on yourself over time. That's the only way you really know what they do. All right, so an enlightened teacher will be able to bring students to enlightenment. Now, that takes a while. You know, I mean, there's no way around that. It's amazing that we can even do it in one lifetime. It's going to take time. It's going to be a work of years. But in the students, you should be able to see the same things I'm talking about in this list, right? These same 7 things, you should be able to see to a lesser extent in the student, right? And the students who are further along, you should be able to see more of it. The students who aren't as far along, perhaps you don't see it as much, but you kind of see where it's going. So to sum that up, you should see in the student an understanding of the truth about reality. You should see the ability to concentrate. You should see an understanding of emotion and ability to harness that emotion. In more advanced students, there will be experiences of unity that lead to being able to both listen to and speak to the universe. That's a big one. And there should be a sense of presence and an atmosphere of peace. How meditation helps. Well, at a certain point along the journey, it's going to help you to teach meditation to others because you'll understand it far more deeply yourself. All right, number 7. This is kind of a footnote, but an enlightened person makes no direct claims on enlightenment. All right. Now, it may seem like, well, if you've achieved something, wouldn't the easiest way to let people know about that be to tell them, like, hey, I can type 60 words a minute, or hey, I know how to use an axe, I can cut up that wood. Yeah, well, you know, spiritual attainment isn't like that. And a lot of people in history have abused the trust of other people by making a bunch of false claims. And so I think at this point in the historical development of humanity, we just don't make claims. It is going to depend on the maturity of the student to perceive the quality of the teacher or lack thereof, right? So, you know, that's putting a lot of responsibility on the student, perhaps. But I think that's where we are right now. I have talked about how there are certain skills involved in meditation, and that's true. It's like anything else. But spiritual attainment is apart from those skills. You know, the fact is that the further you go on the spiritual path, the more you're aware of how limited you are relative to the perfect, unlimited, eternal nature of being itself, which is, that's you, I mean, that's your true nature, but when you understand how painfully limited you are relative to that, it's very, very sobering. You know, you don't feel like, hey, I'm the greatest thing ever, right? When you're more like just in touch with your own self and your own personality, and you know you've done things and whatever, then you're like, yes, I'm great, right? You compare that to oneness. Well, you don't seem as great, right? And that makes you humble. You don't feel like making extravagant claims about yourself. It seems like, well, things are less about you and more about how is the universe seeking to grow right now. All right, so this is the age of mass media, of advertising, of public relations, right? A real teacher needs to be very, very understated about making claims of any sort. Every claim will be questioned. That's just the way it is. And I find it interesting, even the Dalai Lama follows this. The Dalai Lama does not go around saying, I'm enlightened. And that speaks volumes about his maturity and spiritual realization. Now, making no direct claims doesn't mean you have to be invisible. Some people kind of take this too far. They say, well, if you're out there, if you're trying to teach anybody anything, if you're not invisible, then you're fake. That's going too far. I mean, the fact is that the world needs authentic spiritual teachers now more than ever. So, it doesn't give you an excuse. You can't hide your light under a bushel basket. Humanity is going through an amazing development right now because of the information age. It's unified us into this absolutely unbelievable extent. We need to take that to the next level. We need to truly, deeply share and exchange, not just data, but the truth about reality. And that truth is that we are all one. And that is going to take a leap forward for humanity. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. My name is Dr. Asatar Bear. Namaste.